everybody, this is Blake Field here, and I am here to talk to you about World Poetry Month. Here at the middle school, we will be celebrating World Poetry Month by actually doing something called Blackout Poetry. So, what is Blackout Poetry? Well, Blackout Poetry is where you take a pre-existing piece of text. So you could use a newspaper article, or you could use a page from a book, anything that's a pre-existing piece of text. And then what you do is you do it in a couple of stages. You are going to first read the page, and then you're going to go through and you are going to either underline in pencil gently or circle any words that really kind of stand out to you and feel interesting or intriguing. And then maybe you go back through it a second time and you read just those words that you underlined or circled and try to make them sort of flow into almost a sentence or a poem. So as you go through that sort of second time, maybe you erase some of the things you circled, or maybe you underline new things. But by the time you have kind of gotten to a point where you're like, ooh, this all like works. Just the things that I've circled and underlined kind of flows and works together. And generally the idea is that you're not underlining any full sentences. You're just picking like a couple of words or phrases out from the page as a whole. And then once you have picked your a couple of words or phrases out, then what you're going to do is you will take a black magic marker or Sharpie, and you will cross through all of the different lines on the page except for those few words that you've chosen, so that all that remains on the page are those words that will now create their own sort of poem. So let's do one together. So with this page, after I read it, I felt like there was sort of this theme of life and death and growing up, and words like manhood and summoned and vanished and remaining kind of stood out to me. So as I went through, I kind of underlined those, as you can see here, maybe. And I did that pretty gently, because what you're going to do afterwards is, once you have decided on your sort of final selection for your poem, you are going to take the magic marker and you're going to really box out those specific phrases, and then everything else you're going to cross out. Now, a couple of people who are extremely artistic will do really gorgeous and beautiful things along the page. Like maybe with some of this blank space, they'll do really pretty decorations. Some people will actually make the area that is almost sort of like, been blacked out, the blank spaces, if you will, look like an image. I put a couple examples of that on the hub if you want to check it out. I'm not quite that fancy, so I'm going to give it my best shot to, just make it look pretty decent. Okay, so now I've boxed out my words. I've got the poem essentially, and now on the rest of the page, I have this sort of like blank space that I can start to play with. I can make pretty designs. I could just black it out completely, and that would be totally cool. But if I want to get really fancy, I could do some sort of neat doodle or something, maybe something that even kind of reflected the theme of my poem. Okay, and here's my finished product. So as you can see, I tried to get a little bit creative. Instead of just doing straight lines to black it out, I did some sections where I did full blackout, and look at how like cool that looks. It looks really stark and interesting. There were some areas where I did just kind of speckles to get rid of the words that aren't in my boxes. This section coming out of like the phrase about his mother or his birth, I sort of did almost like a little swoop because it felt very like gentle. And then this section, because it was kind of like harsh, it said months past, I decided to do just lines. Although honestly, part of me wants to kind of go back and actually fill it in so it looks really intense and dark like that for months past. And then the bottom, he's talking about how he escaped. So I tried to evoke this idea of sort of almost like a cage or a prison. But anyway, At the end of the day, my poem reads, Manhood summoned as my mother vanished. Men couldn't find her at the time of my birth. I was the only one remaining in a terrible rage. Months passed. I grew up and escaped at 18. So I made mine sort of actually read almost like a sentence, but you can make yours very like kind of disjointed and more haiku like, whatever makes sense for you, and whatever sort of like the page, if you want to get kind of, hokey about it, kind of speaks to you and says, and whatever you pull from it is the correct answer. So I hope that you guys enjoy doing this. And CCC teachers, if you need some pages, you can send a student over to the library and I will give them to them. We've also got some markers here so that they can participate in this month's celebration of World Poetry Month. So, and I hope teachers that you guys participate too. So, all right. Thanks, guys.